Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny, and today we're going to be looking at, if you like this trope, try this book. It's been a minute since I have done a if you like this, try this type video, and so I figured it was time. And I have noticed a couple of tropes recently in my reading that I have really enjoyed, and so I wanted to give some recommendations for those. I have 10 books for you guys, 2 for each trope that I'm going to be giving you, and within each trope I've tried to be varied on the genres that I'm giving you. I do have a lot of fantasy recommendations, but I tried to pair a fantasy recommendation with something that was not fantasy. So I have horror books, I have sci-fi books, I have mystery thrillers, and I even have one contemporary for you guys. So hopefully there should be something in there for everybody. So we will start with one of my favorite tropes, which is the found family trope. So the contemporary novel that I have for you guys is one that I actually read recently called Ragged Company. And I'm gonna scoot over a little bit so you guys can see a picture of this. So Ragged Company is following 4 homeless individuals and 1 person who is not homeless. And it is very, very cold winter in the, I can't remember where this book is set. I believe it's set in Canada, but I'm not sure. And I'm not even sure where in Canada, but it's very, very cold where they're at, and they are struggling to get through the winter. And so they have this idea of seeking shelter in a movie theater, and it kind of becomes a tradition for them. Theater becomes a place of refuge, but also a place where they can interact with the past that they've left behind and relate to the people that have come into their lives since their lives have changed. And this is just a very wholesome, heartbreaking, enlightening story. It's definitely not light material. These people go through some awful things in their lives and definitely have trauma that they are working through with one another. But the fact that they do work through it with one another, and you get to know them as this book progresses in these different events in their life, along with the theater being part of that. It was just a really sweet story. So if you enjoy found family, I definitely think that you could enjoy this book. The next book for found fantasy is a YA fantasy novel, and that is Warrior of the Wild. This is a book by Trisha Levenseller, who is fast becoming one of my auto-read authors. Her books are always very cozy, and this one absolutely is. I believe this was my first Trisha Levenseller that I ended up reading. I read it last year, and it is about a young girl. I believe she's 18, and she is the daughter of the chieftain in this village, and her name is Rasmira, and they have a coming of age task that they have to do, or trial that they have to go through in order to become part of the permanent tribe. And something happens, and she ends up being cast out of her village, and she is not allowed to come back until she completes her, I think it's called, well, is it called her, I don't think it's a boon, because I think a boon is a good thing, but it's her task that she has to complete prior to being accepted back into the village. And her task is to kill the local god. And so she had all these dreams of becoming the next chieftain, and she had always been viewed as this huge success. So this is a detrimental blow to her, and she doesn't really know how to handle it, and now she is thrown out into the wild and she has to figure it out. And she does have some others that she runs across along the way, and obviously found family. She helps these people with tasks of their own, and this is kind of a Viking story. I believe that the tribes that they talk about, there's a whole bunch of different villages that live in this area together, and I do think that it has Viking inspiration within some of the things that are happening. And so the fact that a Viking story can be kind of sweet and cozy, it was just a really good time. The next trope is the reluctant hero, and for this, This is the only one that I have 2 fantasy books, but the first is an adult fantasy and the second is a YA fantasy. So I tried to vary it a little bit. The Reluctant Hero was just something that kept drawing me back to my fantasy reads. So this is the only one that I don't have anything other than fantasy. So my 2 books, or my first book out of the 2, is Ninth Reign. So I'm just gonna hold up the entire series. So Ninth Reign is, let me get my face out of the frame, maybe it'll focus on the books. Ninth Reign is the first book, and then we have The Bitter Twins, and then the Poison Song. Yeah, the Poison Song is the third book. So this is a trilogy by Jen Williams, and I am currently reading the second book, but this does feature a reluctant hero. We actually have 3 main characters that we follow, so 3 POVs that we follow in this series. And I don't know if I want to give you guys which one is the reluctant hero. You'll figure it out if you pick it up, but if you've never heard me talk about Ninth Reign, you follow 3 people who are in a world where there are things that are happening that are bringing back some memories of some very bad times in the world, and there is a race of people called the Aborans. And the Aborans live a very, very long time. And they used to feed on the sap of this tree. It was their tree god. And something happened to that sap, and there were things that happened, I won't give too much away, that eventually meant that the Aborans started dying off. And so this very, very old race of individuals who knew these troubles that the world has at times are starting to die off, and that history is starting to die off with them. Well, these things that are happening in the world that are cluing into, hey, some bad stuff's gonna go down soon and you guys need to prepare, you know, there aren't very many people who have that knowledge anymore. And so we follow an Aboran who no longer lives in the city of Ibora, and he is traveling. I don't know that I want to give much information about him either. His name is Tor, or Tormalin, I believe is his full name, but they call him Tor. And then you follow Vintage, who is a scientist who is kind of discovering the events that are happening in the world and studying those. And then there is a Fell Witch who can take life from the plants around her, or anything around her really, not even just plants, and create fire. And she starts out in a prison. And so you kind of follow all of their journeys. They eventually meet up in this world, and they have to figure out, I don't want to say like how to save the world, but like what's going on and potentially what they can do to help. So there is a reluctant hero in here. I'm not going to pinpoint which of those characters it is. And I do think that it's more prevalent in the second book than maybe the first, but I just really want people to pick up this series. I don't hear very many people talking about it, and I've really enjoyed it so far. The next book is the YA fantasy, which is The Blade of Secrets. This is a duology, and you follow Ziva, who is, I believe she's 18 or 19 years old, and she's a magical blacksmith. And Ziva has some very severe social anxiety, and she really just wants to be in her forge, create her magical items, and leave everyone else out of the picture. And so her sister kind of serves as a wall or a barrier between her and everyday life. She deals with a lot of the social interactions for Ziva, but Ziva is the one who gets all of the attention because of the fact that magic is not something that is super prevalent in the world, especially magical blacksmiths, where she can actually imbue magical powers into these weapons. Well, Ziva gets herself into a bit of a pickle when someone asks for a magical weapon, and there are some hints that this might not be a very good person. And so Ziva essentially has to take the weapon that she's created and run, because she is scared that if this person gets their hands on this weapon that she has created, it will be the downfall of the empire that they live in. So you get to follow her journey in trying to escape her destiny, as far as like, she doesn't want to hurt anybody, but she does have this power that she has been using, and she wants to be responsible with it, and that puts her in the place of having to be the hero and stand up to this person who absolutely terrifies her. It was really cute. There is a slight romance in the book that you get to witness too that was fun. And I really enjoyed the social anxiety rep in this, seeing and hearing Ziva's thoughts in her head as certain interactions are going on was very, very relatable. And I don't know that I've ever read a book that has that type of representation. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. The next trope is the unreliable narrator. And this one I will say is very hit or miss for me as far as books go, but I have found a couple, one that I absolutely loved, one that I just thought was okay, but I thought the way that they did unreliable narrator was really interesting. So I want to talk about two examples for you guys. So the first is the book that I absolutely loved. This is You Let Me In by Camilla Bruce. And I absolutely love this cover. I specifically bought, hopefully I want it to focus on the book, not on me. I specifically bought this cover because there's a cover with a girl in the front too that I really just didn't like. And I like this, the bird. But anyway, this book, you are, in the very beginning, you know that an author has gone missing, and her, I believe it's her niece and her nephew are to inherit the estate, but the quirk behind their inheritance is that they have to go to her cabin where she disappeared and read her last manuscript. And within her last manuscript, she describes her life and some things that happened in her life. She's always been kind of eccentric and has said some things that seem untruthful, and so you get to hear her side of the story and why specific events are happening. And throughout the entire book, it toggles you back and forth on whether or not she's actually lying or if what she is saying is true. And I just absolutely loved that dynamic. It was super creepy. Definitely, I would say check some trigger warnings on this, but I just really enjoyed that constant confusion and constant questioning of the narrator, and not in a, it wasn't in a convenient way. And the ending of this book, oh my gosh, it's so great. The next unreliable narrator is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. So this is a newer release, and I read it this year. I didn't hate it. I rated it 3 stars. So it was okay for me, and I enjoyed certain aspects of it. There were certain parts of the book that I didn't enjoy, but what I did really enjoy about this book was the unreliable narrator, in the fact that they tell you, so in this story you're following, I can't remember his name, but the main character is going to a family reunion, and he is reenacting or telling you about these events that have happened that have led up to a murder. And so the person who is telling you the story absolutely knows what happens in the end. And so they tell you in the beginning that they are only telling you events or details that they knew at the time of the event that is happening that you are reading about. And so they will give you subtle hints throughout the book that is like, I thought this, and then later on, whenever you find out something else, they'll come back and be like, now you can't call me a liar because at that point in time I didn't know. And so I really enjoyed that almost breaking of the fourth wall in that character, and you do get to witness the fact that everyone in his family has killed people and how that happens. And so I did enjoy certain aspects of this book. I think I would like to give this book another try at some point in time and read it physically, because I did read it on audio, and I think that I missed some important details listening to it on audio. But I really did enjoy the unreliable narrator aspect of this book. The next trope is the hero's journey. So a book that follows kind of the hero's life and events that have occurred to their culmination. I have 2 books for you guys. One is fantasy and one is sci-fi. One is more of a particular event that is happening, and then one is more of a lifetime story. And so I wanted to kind of give you guys both kind of a broad scope of this trope. So the first one I have for you is a short fantasy book called Nettle and Bone. So if you haven't heard of this, this follows a girl named Mara whose sister has been married to a person who is abusive, and Mara wants to step in and help. The problem is they are both princesses of a realm. I believe she's the 3rd born princess, and the daughter who's been married to the abusive prince is the second daughter in the family. And she knows that she does not have the power to step in on her own, and so she goes and seeks power elsewhere. So you start the book, and this is a very short book, so I'm not going to give you guys many details, but you start the book with her going to, I believe that's called a grave witch, and asking her for some help, and she has to do 3 impossible tasks for this grave witch before she can get the help that she needs. And essentially this is a story of her journey becoming a hero, trying to save her sister. And this does have found family in it as well. She collects this cast of characters along her journey in these different events that she goes through to save her sister. So I really did enjoy this book, and this is a T. Kingfisher. If you guys have read any T. Kingfisher, this is I was going to say it's their newest book, but it's not. That's absolutely not the truth. This was just really big last year, so that's what I was thinking of. But yeah, I really enjoyed this short little fantasy. So if it sounds interesting to you and you liked the hero's journey aspect, then I think you would like it. The next book that I have for this trope is The Empire of Silence. And so this book was my favorite book in 2022. This is definitely a chunkier book. It's 600 or almost 600 pages. And this is a sci-fi space opera-y story about a guy named Hadrian Marlowe. And Hadrian Marlowe, this series is called the Sun Eater series. This is a very long series, so if you are going to read Empire of Silence, just be aware that it's very long. I've only read the first 2 in the series, but I've really enjoyed it so far. And Hadrian Marlowe is known as the Sun Eater. And you know, starting off, that he is both beloved and hated by people. He is known to have completely eradicated an alien species, and he has destroyed a sun. He's essentially known as a hero and a villain in his story. And you are following his life in this series, which is why it's so lengthy. You follow him from when he is young and on his home planet, and the events that have brought him to becoming the Sun Eater. And you are hearing it from his perspective. So you get his perspective as he has lived this unnaturally long life, even though he is human. But they explain it in the book. The noble classes have ways of living longer than they should in this, and so he has lived a very, very long time and has become this infamous figure, and he is telling you his life story. So you get to hear it from his perspective, but then as you're going, you also get to hear like his younger persona as well, his perspective as well. I really enjoyed this. It is very dense. And I would definitely say this is for fans of Name of the Wind. If you like that kind of story, this is definitely reminiscent of that. It was inspired by that story, in fact. So yeah, this would be for the hero's journey. The next trope is animal companions, and my first recommendation for this is going to be Hunt the Stars. I just recently vlogged the second book in this series. This is a sci-fi I almost said soap opera, sci-fi space opera / romance book, and there is a animal companion. Actually, you can see, if I can get it to not be shiny, little animal companion right here, named Luna, and you get to see her interactions with the people, the romance, the couple in this book as well, and she is just super cute. Like I said, I vlogged the second book in the series recently, so you can watch that. This is a book I read last year. You follow, what is her name? It starts with a T. Oh, please, Tavi. So Tavi is the captain of a ship, and she is a bounty hunter. And she once was a soldier for an empire who she's not on friendly terms with them anymore. And whenever she was a soldier, she fought in I can't remember what the war was called, but they fought another race of people who are like evolved humans called Vavlovians. And in this book, she is approached by a Vavlovian general to acquire something that has been stolen from him. And so she takes this job knowing that she's going to have to be interacting with some people that they fought against in the war, and things could get a little heated, and they get a little heated in a different way. So I really enjoyed this. This is a series of 3 books. I only own the first and the third book right now. Capture the Sun, which is the third book, was sent to me by Leandra, and so I'm looking forward to getting or to finishing the series soon. But if you enjoy animal companions, I really think Luna and Hunt the Stars is really cute. The next animal companion is from Bone Shard Daughter, and there's a character named Mephi in here who is super cute. If you haven't ever heard me talk about the Bone Shard Daughter, you follow 5 different POVs in this, 2 main and 3 kind of separate. This is called the Drown Isles, the Drowning Empire. And you are on an island setting. You follow the Emperor's daughter. So the Emperor has what's called bone shard magic, and his daughter is trying to learn bone shard magic so she can take over for her father, and she's having some memory issues. And so you're following hers is the main storyline. You are trying to figure out why she's having these memory issues. There's some dark things going on. The bone shard magic is quite horrific, and so there are some horror elements in the first book in the series. The second book and the third book in the series don't really lean into that so much, but the first book definitely has some horror elements. And you also follow Jovis. He's the second main character who has lost his wife, and he is essentially roaming the islands to try and figure out where his wife is. And the other 3 characters that you follow are people who are on other islands throughout the kingdom, and so you get to see kind of the politics and the events that are happening on those islands. There's some bad things happening on the islands as far as they are drowning. There has been islands that have sunk and they don't know why, and so there are some other things going on that aren't just within the main city with the Bone Shard Daughter. So I really enjoyed this series. I finished the 3rd book earlier this year, and I do think my favorite book in the series is the first one, but I do think that if you enjoy animal companions, the animal companion gets stronger and stronger throughout the series as far as like his presence in the books. And so if you really enjoy animal companions, I really think this is worth giving a try. So those are the 5 tropes that I have for you guys and the 10 recommendations that I have. What are some of your guys' favorite tropes and the books that go with them? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to chat with you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.